Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hi, I'm Wally Burns, the Education and Training Manager at CPMA. CPMA would like to acknowledge Nature Fresh Farms as our Produce Talks series sponsor. Find out more about Nature Fresh Farms and how they are growing for a kinder future at www.naturefresh.ca. You can keep up with them on Instagram or Twitter at nature_fresh and on Pinterest at naturefresh, along with other social media. This is the recording of a learning lounge from the recent CPMA Convention and Trade Show in Toronto. We listened to moderator Kimberly Roberts of Walmart discuss innovation and sustainability with other industry-leading women. They discuss moving the food industry forward with innovative solutions to ensure the long-term sustainability of food in Canada. The four panelists are Stephanie Sansen of Loop Mission, Sangeeta Lalli of TELUS Agriculture, Susan Jones-Ing of Limoneira Company, Amy Bowen of Vineland Research and Innovation Center. In addition, we've added a new segment to each of our monthly episodes called Industry Insights. Listen to the end of the podcast as Mike Mauti shares current statistics from the Canadian consumer market. It's a short 5-minute segment of current information that we hope will provide you with timely updates to help in your business.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about women in produce, leadership, and sustainability and innovation, which is a great topic, and we've got some great ladies up here with us today to talk about that. So a little bit about myself and who I am. I'm Kimberly Roberts. I'm the Senior Director of Produce at Walmart Canada. Very small company. You may not be familiar with it. And I also sit on the board with the team here at the CPMA, so very honored to be joined with our panelists today. So Walmart, I mean, we have been on a journey focused on sustainability for a very long time as an organization. And really it's about how we build for a regenerative future. And that is inclusive of sustainability initiatives, meaning how we divert food waste. It includes diversity inclusion, so that also includes more female women at leadership roles in the organization. So very excited to talk about that topic today. So I'm going to turn it over to our panelists here to let them introduce themselves and give them a little bit of a background of who they are and how their company is focused on innovation and sustainability in the food industry.
I'll start us off. Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Stephanie. Super excited to be here, excited to be among my female peers in the industry. I think that this is where it really sort of, I hope to see the direction of the industry move in the future, seeing more women in senior leadership roles. So really excited to be here. I work for Loop Mission. I'm not sure if any or all of you are familiar with us. We are a 6.5-year-old company based out of Montreal, founded really as a solution to a problem and a growing problem, which is food waste. So Cochin-La-Rose, Northeastern North America's largest produce distributor, reached out to David Cote, so one of our co-founders, really well known as a serial entrepreneur, somebody who is a starter, makes things happen, and said, you don't know me, I know you. We've got a problem, can you do something about it? And he said, let's talk through this problem, and went to their distribution center and was met with a wall of 16 tons of produce. And the VP of Ops said, every single day, this is what leaves our facility and goes to a landfill. And David was struck and could not understand how this was possible. And at that time, he had recently started dating his co-founder and our president, Julie Poitras-Saunier. And she has her master's in sustainability. She led the Keurig team on a lot of their sustainability initiatives. So it really was a perfect coupling. And that's where we were founded. So we built our cold pressed juice house directly within Quilchan and started pressing juice 6.5 years ago. Started small, grew in Quebec and have scaled since. So in the last 4.5 years have brought it into, national distribution and now into the US. So pretty excited to be, leading sales for a company that's doing something that's impactful and really, 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 truly is pivotal. I don't know how many of you are aware of the issue, but food waste represents, about 1/3 of food total is sent to a landfill. So it's a massive problem. And it is now, right? Like now that we need to find these solutions. So I'm really proud to work with Loop and hope to see more solution finders coming to the industry really soon.
All right. My name's Sangeeta Lalli, and I'm the Public Policy Director for TELUS Agriculture and Consumer Goods. Many of you have probably heard of TELUS before. Company has been around for more than 3 decades now, innovating in telecommunications, from dial-up to 5G wireless internet and rotary phones to cell phones. And over the last 5 to 6 years, we've been focusing our efforts on digitizing the agriculture sector. Our goal is to digitize the agriculture supply chain from farm all the way over to retail and leverage data across the whole supply chain from one part of the supply chain to the other to help everybody optimize their operations. When it comes to sustainability and when reducing food waste, our tools can help track where food is at any given point, and allow food to be diverted before it actually becomes waste, so that it can be used in juices or in other products in animal feed. So one of the things that I focus on in particular is on public policy and the policies that we can be initiating in Canada and around the world to help resolve the hurdles to ag tech adoption. Things like rural connectivity, and I know there are a few questions that are coming up where I can dive into this topic a little bit more, and so I'll keep my comments for then.
Thanks, Susan.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, great. My name is Susan Jones-Ing, and I work for Limoneira company. I'm the Director of Global Sales and Citrus Marketing. We're a 130-year-old diverse citrus company. We sell, we pack, and of course we do marketing. And for Limoneira, we're in a perpetual state of innovation when it comes to agricultural practices, washing and packing, and our facility management. So when I looked at this question, what comes to mind is really a fundamental dilemma. And if you think in terms of, we've been growing food for, a millennia. And let's say in 1923, the population was 2 billion. And as of today, we're 8 billion. So what we've learned is there's this population, this huge population, but think about this. The land that's available, it's the same as it was then as it is now. So with that said, my sustainability team, we've learned that extensive tillaging and fertilizer, all these things that are that we're working to looking at alternatives, it impacts the environment. So within our own board and within our management team, the forefront and the focus is sustainability.
Thank you. Amy?
Okay, so I'm Amy Bowen. I work at the Vineland Research and Innovation Center. So we're a private, not-for-profit horticultural research center that's located in the Niagara Peninsula. And so we support sort of the horticultural industry in all sorts of different ways, from like new variety development to automated solutions for labor challenges, technology validation, around pest and disease management. I'm the director of our Consumer Sensory and Market Insights group, so a lot about understanding the consumer, understanding the value chains, understanding kind of the needs, of the industry, consumer behavior around it, and then a lot around production practices. So we're very diverse and working on kind of the edible as well as non-edible. So we also work on sort of the nursery landscape side of things, and it's just ingrained in everything we do, sort of at Vineland, to include sustainability, as part of it. So it's actually part of our value proposition, which is to improve the, economic competitiveness, sustainability, for, the Canadian sort of industry. So in a lot of different things that we're doing, we're looking at it from different angles of what that means. So, new variety development, because we want less input so that these varieties that we're putting out and sort of offering have, more sustainable farming practices, or understanding the needs of the consumers around, whatever it is that are kind of those topics, and how to sort of educate and provide knowledge to sort of support that. So I don't want to steal too much of the questions sort of going forward, but so I'll keep that short and sweet, so we've got lots of time to talk for the rest of it.
That's
okay. I think you actually just answered the question I was going to ask. Around sustainability is at the core of every industry now, no matter where you are, government, retail, your consumer, it's top of mind for everybody. How do you take, when you're thinking of innovation, when you're innovating in your organizations, how do you take a lens of sustainability in everything that you do? What does that look like?
So I guess I can start, since I was already sort of talking about it. One of the things we really do is we look at the problem first, and then how do you find the solution for that? And so what are the biggest challenges that the industry is facing, or a specific sector or crop, within the industry is facing? Because often if one is, somebody else is as well. So, example like food waste, that's something that we're looking at, but realizing that a lot of people talk about food waste at the consumer level of what's being thrown out, or at the store level, but actually at the production level, there's huge amounts of waste that are happening in the field, that are happening sort of at processors. And so we've been doing a lot of work around sort of understanding that, and how to create a more sustainable industry before it even gets to, a chance for, a consumer or a packer to be able to look at it. And then finding solutions, or, opportunities of being able to work. Another thing we find, and that really helps around that in how we use sustainability, is as a connector role, because we're working we're kind of the whole value chain, from the, primary producer, the grower, all the way to, working with retailers and, the final consumer sort of that's purchasing it. So it's understanding who knows what information, because it's amazing how you just assume that people understand what's happening, and people have no idea. So that's another big role that we have in helping support the sustainability initiatives, is connecting a grower that has massive amounts of waste with a company that's looking for waste streams, right? And how to sort of make those connections, or working with them of how to take that waste stream and keep it food safe, keep it, from, going bad, because it's very perishable. What are the technology solutions that they need to then, optimize that waste, or transform it into, a powder or something else? So, that's just one example that, we can sort of use, but can sort of look at it across our portfolio. It's really finding the problem and how we can address the solution with sustainable.
And looking at it, I guess I would say end to end, for the whole length of the supply chain. Where are the pain points, and then how upstream? So embedding that in any way you're innovating, whether it's new products or new way of bringing things to market. So that's great.
Yeah, I can touch a little on this. I mean, at Loop, we started as Loop juices, right? So we were Loop juices, cold pressed juices. That is what we did. That's our core business. It remains our core business. But over time, we really became seen as solution finders for food waste, whether that's produce or whether that's byproducts. So in some ways, we became almost like an industry call center, and it shifted the way that we innovated. So really innovated in a reactive way, and extending our lines from there, or launching new product lines from there. So we have 42 SKUs. I don't think that we ever thought that we would have that many SKUs. Certainly didn't think that we would, branch out into alcohol a couple of years ago, but we get calls. So the alcohol is an example. That's in partnership with Crispy Kernels. They own a potato chip company, and when they make their potato chips, they cut the ends off. And they usually just send that to a landfill, but they're great. Like, too small to be a potato chip, sure, but good enough for something else, absolutely. So we take those potato ends and we distill it into our Loop branded gin, right? And every bottle rescues 2 pounds of potatoes. So I think it's really, our mission outside of growing, of course, our brand and fighting food waste is to really help all food manufacturers, all growers, all retailers look at their waste as an opportunity to create economy. Why not? Like, why pay the price to dispose of something that could be used as an ingredient for somebody else's product that they're manufacturing? So that's our goal, and we really choose to innovate based on the problem, right? Based on what's the growing problem and what can we do with this to create a product that's exactly the same, if not better. And most of the time it is better, right? Like our juices, we're able to access premium produce items. We can put strawberries and yellow peppers into our juices, just items that are typically too expensive to press into a cold pressed juice. So it's really about how do we shift our lens of how we look at, extracting something new from the earth, and instead look at what's already available, what's already in circulation, and what can we use that's going to avoid that going to a landfill. So yeah.
I think Stephanie's trying to convince everybody on sustainability and also to support Loop.
I mean, I am in sales at the end of the day. So.
And on our end, we've been focusing on making sustainability core to the public policy initiatives and ideas that we're putting together at TELUS and at TELUS Agriculture. Digitization and digital technologies, if applied across all industries in Canada, could reduce emissions by up to 20%. Mobile digital technologies could reduce emissions in the agriculture sector in Canada by 10%. Digitization and technology can play a massive role. However, digital policies do not play a core role in climate initiatives and climate policies in Canada or in the G7 countries. So there's a real gap between the climate targets that are being set and how to actually enable them. Core to digitization is rural connectivity. 40% of rural households do not have access to reliable connectivity today. And by reliable connectivity, I mean 50-10 speeds, and that's a definition that the government uses. So digital policies that support faster rollout of rural connectivity and eventually faster rollout of 5G to rural communities so that agriculture-based areas can be leveraging automation through 5G connectivity is extremely important, as well as policies like creating a strategy for a national creating a strategy for the adoption of technologies in the country, or digital reskilling of farmers. There are lots of digital policies that can be applied that also double up as climate policies, and that's something that we've been encouraging both industry and government to start considering.
All right, thank you. I'm going to jump to the next question. So all of your organizations have chosen to make innovation a key component in product development. So I want to understand why that's the case and not just redefining existing products. Why is it so important?
For Limoneira Company, because we've been around for 130 years, and of course we want to be around another 130 years. So with that said, sustainability is just a part of our company. This is what we do. So when we look at innovation, we look at it as collaboration amongst our team. And our teams are set up with various, departments, from farming to sales, our sustainability department, housing, operation. So it's really important that we continue to communicate. And when we do that, we look at our three vital areas that we're looking at is soil, fertilizer, and again, when we talk about food waste. And I think it was Stephanie that was talking about the different parts of like a potato or adding the strawberries. For us, what we do, and also touches upon what Amy was talking about too, knowing that we're a grower For example, the lemons that we grow, we know exactly how much of the lemons that we're bringing in to our facility, and we're picking from our orchards, which is basically 100% coming in. So what goes out that isn't sold fresh into, let's say, retail or food service, it goes to juice. So any other product from picking that's rot or rotten a bit that can't be sold either way goes directly to our mulch.
Yeah.
And we have a mulch company on site. So we grind everything up within the green waste, and we use mulch on our orchards. So we're constantly being asked, what else can we do? Because we all live on this planet together.
Yeah.
And with that said, with fertilizer, the synthetic fertilizer, we're trying to look at alternative fertilizer, and we're working on that too. And as you guys know, that's one of the, oh my gosh, the GHG on this is pretty incredible, especially for the environment. And then we look in terms of the soil. And the soil is extremely important because what goes into the soil can run off into the ocean, and that causes issues too. So we look at our inputs into the soil and also, of course, our outputs. So this is constantly being looked at by our teams and our different committees. So it's extremely important, and again, it's part of our culture. And I know it's one of our questions that we were going to talk about, but when you collaborate and you collaborate within a team, you have that trust factor and you have the respect as like our colleagues here and within a team. You have to be able to be fearless about your suggestions and bring it up because, look, when we talk about sustainability, it's not stagnant, it's constantly evolving. So your teams have to continuously evolve and bring up those hard questions. And again, you really have to be fearless about what your suggestions are. So,
yeah, I think we're living in a world where we need to do more faster.
Yeah.
And so I think that is why we need to constantly innovate. And it's not just about reinventing existing products. Like that's not what consumers want, and that's not what the world needs. We need to think outside of the box, and Loop's a great example of that.
I mean, I think there's also, like, just briefly, there's a ceiling to every category, right? And you're sharing that space with competitors as you should, but there's a ceiling. And what we know is the problem's growing. It's sad and it's unfortunate, but the problem is growing. We have access to more waste than we did 6 years ago, right? So from 16 tons to 20 tons. So innovation is key because there's so much food waste to innovate with. But it broadens your mission awareness. So cross-category merchandising potential is phenomenal for any brand, any brand. So if you're seen in a dry aisle and you're seen in a fridge and you're seen at the LCBO and you're seen at multiple touch points, it sort of intrigues the consumer to try to understand what the heck you're doing, which hopefully leads them down the path of understanding the mission and educating themselves. And I know that Gen Zs and millennials, they are the future, of course, and they're the target market. They will spend more on cause-based items. Like, that's a fact. There's no doubts about that. So market to those people, innovate for those people. There's a consumer base that's there. And knowing that the problem is growing, you're really left with no option but to innovate. So, yeah.
To add on to that, on the farming side too, when we look at regenerative farming, okay, it promises to produce more yield, and it decreases the input that you're putting into the ground. But all this is for environmental stability. So when you say when I say increase in input, we're also talking about the consumer, and when we talk about cost, and is it, if you're putting this much into your sustainability program, are you going to recover the cost? And our answer is yes, it promises to do this. And yet, again, it brings environmental stability.
And if we can benchmark and quantify the actions that are taking place, generally using technologies and data to create the initial benchmark and then count the additional actions that are taken, it allows us to also communicate to our customers what actions were taken and what kind of impact those have. But we first need to start with the basics and get the benchmarks down, which I know many companies are starting to work on individually, hopefully we'll see more national benchmarks come forward as well.
Just quickly on that, I'll be really quick, is I think the other thing too, it's the nature of fruits and vegetables. There's massive amounts of variation. So if you need to fix something in it, you can't just add an ingredient. You have to develop a new product, right? And so that's inherent to sort of that innovation pipeline that continually happens. And it takes a lot of time and effort to develop new varieties, to develop new production practices. So why would you just mimic what's already out there? You're going to start with the problem and find a solution. So it again goes to that innovation, like the innovative nature.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here and go back to the Women in Produce conversation. So I'm going to read a quote, a study that was published in Stanford Medicine magazine in 2017 that stated new technologies have generated a growing pile of evidence that there are inherent differences in how men's and women's brains are wired and how they work. Now, I'm sure we could all go on that topic for quite a while, but we're not going to get into some specifics on why they differ. But I want to understand from the group here today on your take and an experience you've had in terms of how your approach to innovation or innovating new ideas may have been different from those of your counterparts who are male. And if you haven't had that experience, but if you have, kind of explain why. I'm a huge advocate that there's value in having diversity. You need a well-balanced team to move initiatives forward. But it's interesting to tie that there's actual differences in brain structure.
So I guess from my experience, what I see, and one thing that's interesting is our organization, which is research and in horticulture, is majority women. So we're at like 60% women that are sort of employed there. But I think when I sort of see the difference, maybe it's the approach. It's a more kind of open, take in all the ideas, gather all the information, figure out what is important, distill it down and go forward. Whereas sometimes when it's like being led by some of my male colleagues, it's like, that's the idea, we're going with it, right? And so it's just, that's obviously generalizing, but I think that's the one thing, is it's taking in more opinions, taking more time before to kind of deciding on the path and bringing in those different, views and sort of options and versus just kind of going with sort of the first instinct. So that would be my experiences more. It's just taking a bit more time with the innovation development pipeline.
Thank you. Okay, I'm getting a time check here. We're going to pause and put it over to the crowd if anyone has any questions for any of our panelists today. No? You want? All right.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm working for Ragswan. It's a vegetable seed company. And in our field, we see a lot of fruit waste at the producer level, mostly because the produce does not apply to packaging standards or it doesn't fit in the right box. Do you have any idea how we could reduce that? Because on the variety level, we can of course select varieties to produce the right size or the right shape or the right color, but we're talking about a live produce, so it's not 100% sure, and we'll always have a diversity in the end product. How can we make sure that this is not waste anymore, but it's actual produce that can be used at 100%?
I think it's managing that diversity and knowing it's going to be there and diversifying your product line. So it's like the grading system. The number ones go here, but for all those ones that are ugly or don't fit or are too big, too small, whatever it is, that we do other things with it. So whether we're making purees or powders or selling it to another company or whatever those things might be, but it's thinking within your own company, how can we diversify that waste to create value from it, or partner with somebody else that we can then create value from that waste.
I think the partnerships are big. How can you partner? And that's where we go back to where you look at it end to end. Like where is there a gap? And if there is a partnership, if there's other people within the industry that are having a problem, you can both come together and come up with a solve. I think that's a big one too.
Yeah, managing fresh products that have, that consumers are speculative on, that look a little ugly, is really, really hard. And I know that at Loop, it's labor intensive, it's 100% resource intensive. If we're buying a load of strawberries, let's say, it comes packed in clamshells, right? So we're having to unpack everything and sort it. If it's pears, we have to peel the stickers off, and so it's very resource heavy. And most quality directors are probably going to say, no, we're not going to make something with a second or that needs to be sorted. So I think it really does come back to partnering with people in the industry that have already created the process to streamline that waste. But also I really think it's also leaning in and collaborating and finding the gaps with our retail partners. The landscape of how we shop has changed in the last century, right? Like we're going into supermarkets, it's where 99% of us shop. So how do we partner with our retailers to drive a message into the market that ugly food is edible? Like, who cares if your beet is oval and not round? Who cares if your carrot has 3 legs? Can we save a little bit? So I think the larger voice in the industry is the retailer. So how do we get closer with their sustainability teams to really bring forward a message to consumers that makes us more comfortable with buying and consuming ugly food? Like, it really is, I think, coming back to how do we educate and then bring together industry, bring together consumers, and just work towards a better future. Yeah.
All right. If I can just say, that's a great segue to say, Kimberly will be back tomorrow talking about sustainability at Walmart, and along with some other colleagues in other organizations. So back to you, Kimberly, to wrap it up.
I will, yeah. No, thank you guys for joining. Thank you everybody here for joining us today. Thank you to all of our amazing panelists for all of your input and insight on this topic. So have a great show, and thank you.
For the last few years, CPMA has made a significant effort to get to know the Canadian produce consumer better. After all, where would we be without the people who actually buy the products offered by our members? To celebrate these efforts, we're adding a new segment to our podcast series called Industry Insights. Each month, we'll hear from experts like Mike Mauti, CPMA's own consumer guru, who will provide our listeners with just a taste of what we've learned about the Canadian consumers this month. So welcome, Mike. We're always very interested to hear what the Canadian produce consumer has to say. What did you learn this month?
Well, thanks a lot again, Wally. I really appreciate you having me on this podcast. And again, we learned a lot of interesting things about the Canadian consumer. Last month, we took a little bit of a deeper dive into consumer response on produce inflation and the types of departments that they're cutting back on in the grocery store. This month, we're going to go a little bit deeper and take a look at the types of produce items that they're leaving at the grocery store. Plus, we want to take a look at one of the tools that retailers use to drive sales in the store, even in these inflationary times. I'm talking about the weekly flyer. Specifically, we're going to review some of the perceptions held by consumers to see if we can use that to our advantage when we're trying to drive consumption.
I'm anxious to hear about the types of fruits and vegetables that are being left behind. I'm also a bit nervous. What did you learn?
Well, no surprise. The products that consumers are buying the most, things like berries and grapes, and on the veg side, lettuces and cooking vegetables, are the ones that are most frequently left behind during these inflationary times. But interestingly, depending on the demographics, other products kind of sneak into that top pictures. For example, those who have the highest incomes in Canada are more likely to leave apples behind, whereas the youngest consumers, those aged 20 to 34, are most likely to leave tropical fruit behind. And some of these people who are in the upper middle income brackets are most likely to leave value-added produce behind. So while the most common products sold are the ones across the board, we do see these nuances depending on the demographic.
That's very interesting. And your research shows that the weekly flyers can help mitigate declines?
Well, for sure. I mean, the weekly flyers is something that we've long thought has been a bit of a declining tool. But what we found is that 3/4 of the population are actually using flyer items. And of those 3/4, we're finding that 3/4 agree that the flyer items are less expensive than non-flyer items. And they also agree that some of their favorite items are being put on a rotation. So the products that they want to buy most, if they miss it this time, it's going to come back in a future ad and they can pick it up that time. But what we are seeing also is that the older consumers are more likely to be reading flyers and using flyers for their weekly shop. So that does give a little bit of an indication that maybe it is a habit of a bygone era. Surprisingly, though, people with higher incomes are more likely to gravitate towards flyer usage. But unsurprisingly, we see that discount shoppers are also more likely to use flyers. So it can be a tool to drive consumption and mitigate some of these products that are being left on the shelf due to inflation.
It does sound like a large percentage of the consumers know what to expect in the flyer. That's good to hear that the message is resonating. Any other things to look for or to be careful about flyers?
Well, one thing that is a bit concerning is half the population, including half of the population that are using flyers, believe that flyer items are either older stock that the stores are looking to get rid of or are a lower grade of product. So there is an opportunity to change that perception. And this is felt most strongly with the youngest consumers. So this again leads us to the idea that perhaps it's something trusted more by older consumers and something that might go away over time as these younger consumers get more into the grocery stores.
Thanks, Mike. We look forward to hearing more from you next month.
Well, thank you very much, Wally, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you to the listeners. And remember, you can subscribe to Produce Talks at Google or Apple Podcasts and on most other podcast players. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.